So we're here with Rick Smith, warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Norman, and had a chance to catch his topic today at the event as well. But Jen, go ahead.
So, Rick, first of all, you're just a legend in this industry.
Well, thank you. I don't believe you, but go ahead.
Yes, you're absolutely incredible. First, I would just love to know your story of how you got into weather, and then I want to dive into your talk and your presentation.
Well, like my backstory, origin stories, like a lot of meteorologists. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I was interested in weather. As a little bitty kid, I knew I wanted to be a meteorologist. I really didn't know what the word was at the time, but wanted to be a weatherman. But I was also terrified of storms. So as a child, and even up into my early teens, probably, I had severe storm anxiety. Like, thunderstorm in the daytime was awesome, where you could see what was going on. A thunderstorm at night was a traumatic experience for me. I never went through a tornado or anything, so I don't know where that came from. But so that's how I grew up. I was always interested in weather and always knew I wanted to be a meteorologist. So yeah, and I kind of grew up and had a rocky road trying to get to school, but it finally worked out where the University of Memphis had a meteorology program for a short time, and got my degree there and got to work in the Memphis office, and then went to Tulsa and Fort Worth, and I've been here in Norman since 2002.
So that's an amazing story, and you have so much experience with so many incredible storms. And you had an amazing talk today too. What is it like when there's a big severe weather threat? What is the feel in the office? What do you do differently? And what has changed actually over the past 5 to 10 years?
It's a great question. The severe weather event, the anticipation for that obviously seems to begin many days in advance now. That's one big change.
Yeah.
It's not just the day 2 outlook or the day 3, it's the day 8 sometime, or it's even beyond that. Social media speculation starts discussion. So one of the things is we're looking out further ahead. And one of the things that does is that just builds up. I mean, there's a lot that's going on every day that you're going through to ramp up to the event is, I mean, you're living that event all the time. And me and the other forecasters in the office, if we know there's a big severe weather outbreak coming in 4 days from now, that's all you're thinking about. When you go to work, that's all you're talking about. You're briefing the partners, you're talking to emergency managers, answering phone calls, doing social media. So you're living that event like 24 hours a day. So by the time the day gets there, or the event, I call an anticipatory fatigue syndrome. It's like you're exhausted by the time the day of the severe weather gets there. But I mean, it's a professional environment in the Weather Service. I mean, on the day of severe weather, we all have our job to do. We divide up the duties based on someone's a warning forecaster, someone's doing communications, and it's a pretty well-oiled machine once the event gets going. But ramping up to the event, there can be just as much pressure and just as much stress leading up to that day as there is going through that day.
I can imagine. Now, do you coordinate at all with local storm chasers and brief them ahead of time just so you have that good communication? Or what is it like with the storm chasers, I should say?
We don't have any official relationships with storm chasers. I mean, all the TV stations in Oklahoma City have their storm trackers, storm chasers. So we're interacting with the TV stations, not directly with the chasers so much, but certainly all the information that we're putting out on social media, and we know chasers are looking at our area forecast discussion, and all the information we're putting out is accessible to them. We don't communicate directly with them. We may, on the day of the event, remind people about the importance of giving us reports. And that's not specifically aimed at chasers, but we get so much good information from storm chasers. We do want to remind them, and we talked about it in the session this afternoon, that it's very important. It's very easy to give us a piece of information that could be really the difference in a warning being issued or not.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And talking about damage surveys after the fact, after multiple tornadoes and multiple storms, how do you manage all of that along with your emotions after the event?
Well, it's tricky. I mean, we all got into weather because we're interested in meteorology, and geeky science people that like to look at computer screens. It's a whole different thing when you get in a vehicle and drive somewhere where a tornado has just happened. And when you're walking around muddy streets or walking around someone's yard with everything that was in their kitchen pantry just scattered across the yard, and
Yeah.
stuffed animals, so there was no training that prepared me for that. So you just have to make sure that you're emotionally prepared for it. Not every forecaster is.
Yeah.
And it's just we're out there doing a scientific mission. We're out there to gather scientific data. So some people are really good at detaching themselves and just saying, I'm just getting the data. But it's pretty hard to, because we're also interacting with survivors
Yeah.
when we're out there, and you're hearing their stories. They always love to tell their stories, and you really want to listen. You can learn valuable lessons from it. But
Yeah.
you're talking to people who probably are just going through the worst day of their lives, and trying to gather information about the storm. So it does take some work. The Weather Service is being much more proactive now. We've actually developed training
Mhm.
for our forecasters on how to manage stress in situations like that, how to prepare yourself mentally before you go do a survey,
Yeah.
getting them primed for some of the things they may encounter on a survey that could impact their mental health or things you may not expect. So we're doing a better job with that. But yeah, it's part of the job. Not everybody is cut out to do it, but it's an important part. The severe weather event doesn't end when we issue the last warning.
Yeah.
It continues for days, weeks, months after that, and the damage survey is a part of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know. Because I was in Tupelo, Mississippi for the April 27th, 2011 outbreak.
Mhm.
And that was just, I mean, the National Weather Service was out there for months,
Mhm.
surveying things. What is one of the most powerful things you've seen a tornado do, whether it's ground scouring, whether it's, we had in Northeast Mississippi, a truck that had been lifted up and hit a water tower and then
Yeah.
came back down.
Smithville, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a big, powerful moment that you saw or had here?
There's a lot. I mean, there's thinking back, we talked about the May 24, 2011 tornado outbreak. We had 3 violent tornadoes on the ground on Parallel Pass moving through the Oklahoma City metro area. And that was probably one of my first really violent tornado surveys that I went on.
Yeah.
And it was an extremely rural area, but all you could see was just scoured ground. It was just red dirt everywhere. And it didn't look like that the day before.
Yeah.
Just seeing the power that I had never walked around a damage path like that. And also encountering vehicles, like pieces of vehicles, not very big at all. You couldn't even recognize what kind of vehicle it was, just shredded and thrown incredible distances. There's all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
And just walking through the path of the May 20th, 2013 tornado, just seeing the houses just unrecognizable. If you didn't know where the streets were, you would have no clue. There's no reference points. And I walked through there for a few hours one afternoon. I can't imagine what it is for people being there. So it's just the power. It's just the immense power, and just realizing that at 2:45 in the afternoon, that those houses were there, everything was fine.
Yeah.
And an hour later, it was a wasteland. And it's just there was nothing there. There was blue sky, then a white puffy cloud, then a supercell, and then people's lives changed. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
So I've got one last question. So on your talk today, Rick, on post-storm surveys, it seemed like this past year, a lot of impatience with getting results back from those, and a lot of people, because of that, wanting to guess and throw out their own estimations as to the strength of a tornado. I guess, what do you want people to know, if you could sum that up in that process? What's involved in that process that you want people to understand before they start making those guesses and getting frustrated?
Right. The Weather Service has to go out and survey these tornadoes. We're responsible for rating them and documenting them. And it's hard work. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it can take 4 hours one way for us to even drive to a spot to start surveying damage sometimes. So it can take hours and hours and days in many cases. So be patient. Know that the Weather Service is working as hard as we can with our partners. We want to get it right. I mean, we don't want to guess. We don't want to speculate. We're scientists, and we want to look at the data and get the best data that we can. We want it to be right. So it's going to take some time. Sometimes it takes days, but no, we're working on it. And speculation or arguments about what EF scale rating it is. That's going to happen on social media. People have their opinions, but realize that there's a lot more that goes into it than just, oh, there's a slab that used to be a house, so that's an EF5. There's a lot of forensic work, a lot of CSI type work that goes into those surveys, and the stronger the tornado is, often the more complicated they are.
Okay. Cool. Rick, thank you very much, man.
All right,
We appreciate the time.
cool.
Doing
So are y'all
that.
just going to put this
So
together
yeah,
for a
so
show?
we'll take